Hey there, everyone. Michael Lamont here with the latest episode of starbeam.one, Stand Up and Shine and Chill. This is a series that I put together to help keep people up to date with my project, Starbeam.one. It is modeled after the agile methodology of a stand-up, where you tell your teammates what you're working on, what you're going to be working on, and any sort of friction points that you are encountering. And what I've added is so much more. Let's begin. Okay, starting off the show with program notes, and this is kind of news items, anything that's sort of major happening, and there isn't really a lot major happening right now. Just a lot of coding, and we'll get into that. But it's mid-month. It's the second show of the month. And in 2 weeks is October, and that's going to be beta 2. So working towards that, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. It's still slow. Getting a little bit better, though. We have a few new news items, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And we're kind of rebuilding a little bit, and we'll talk also a little bit about that. And let's do that with the next slide here. Okay, so what did I do? Email policy. Finally, the email policy is in. After a year of looking at this and wanting to have it done, and after like 6 weeks of just having it on the list and not getting to it, finally done. And now we have emails that are required, email addresses that are required when you either create an account or when you sign in with an account. We're going to ask for your email, and that is now in there. It took forever. That took 2 weeks, and it's done, though. It's finally done, and it's ready to test, I should say, and that's going to be the next step here. And so there's a few things that go along with that. But yeah, it's just a lot nicer now. Had to go through and implement it, of course, but went through and tore out a lot of old code that's no longer used. Because before we were registering more than one email address, and that has to do with the design of proofing and using the proofing system, the identity system, no longer necessary because we have proofing through email identities, where we just take the hash of an email, and then that proves who you are to the system in case anyone wants to use you as a beneficiary using your email as the proof. And so that's in there. So we don't need to have registration of multiple emails. We just need the email to contact you with, and also with support. So I'm really happy with it. I hope it works as well as it does in production, as it does on my machine, because that's the next step, is to get, to production and making sure it works. So that's going to be tomorrow, and then I should have it deployed sometime later on this week, hopefully, if it all goes well. So it's really nice too, I did mention, but just getting a lot of code done, and it's really been focused code. So I'm feeling really good in that regard. So there are small victories here. All right, so what am I doing now? This is kind of a bit of a pivot, and I know it's right in the middle of a beta, but I'm going to try to get this done before beta 2. And kind of, as you might know, it is slow, as we've been mentioning. We had Lady Leah have her account suspended, and it's still suspended from Twitter, and that's a huge blow to our marketing right now. All of our marketing efforts are kind of at a standstill. However, we have an emerging, hopefully, I don't want to say partnership just yet, because nothing's official. Partnership's really official sort of thing, but we have some collaboration going on with AI Va Vortex, or Va Vortex AI, and they are AI community, and we're starting to talk about ways that we can help each other, and platform features is one of the ways that we're talking. And so one of the ways we're looking at that is establishing a community market. So what if Va Vortex had a community market, where there's just a market that's dedicated to them, and they're allowed to sell products in that market that splits the proceeds automatically for any member that they want to produce a product with, or create an additional market, or I'm calling it albums, sub-market, an album that they can produce products within, and members can produce products within, and correspondingly share proceeds there as well. So you have the community market, which is it's a new market altogether, but it's sort of hidden, but not. We're sort of discussing what that's going to look like. You basically can only get to it if you view the member's profile. If you go to Va Vortex's profile directly, or through like a direct link sort of thing, and so that's the sub market, the community market, and then there's this notion of albums, and of producing sort of like collections with NFTs. So you have a collection or an album of products that are grouped by theme, sort of thing. So we're looking at that, and that is going to be a community market, and that's going to be my focus here for these next 2 weeks, because there's a contest at the beginning of next month, and we're going to see if we can get it done before then. Okay, so friction points. Still more of the same here. Microsoft's getting better. I have to say, Microsoft does get frustrating sometimes, but man, they deliver. They really care, and they're just so, when you compare them now, I'm kind of glad in one way, in one aspect, because I've got these problems you'll see here with Google and Twitter. They just don't do anything. It's really tough to get any sort of communication, and it's very obscure with their communication. But Microsoft, you know exactly where they stand, and they are so communicative. They're so dynamic, and they are really, you know exactly where you stand, like I said, and it's kind of refreshing in that regard. Maybe if you don't get an answer that you don't like, well, at least you got an answer, right? More than I can say with Google and Twitter, right? And they we'll talk a little bit about that. But getting back to Microsoft, not only do they listen, but they actually do things, right? And so they're, the great thing about GitHub is that you can keep track of all these issues, and they've been really tackling one of the major issues that I have, and it's actually the biggest one right now, and it's awesome that they are doing this. I'm waiting for the pull request to get pushed to the Visual Studio preview, and that should be in the next week, maybe 2 weeks here, and that's the first one here. So I got a question mark. Whenever there's an item that looks like it's about to be fixed, I put a question mark around that. Hopefully by the next show, we might have a little better idea. It might be a few weeks after that, but it's on its way, right? So that's awesome, right? This is a communication. There's, clear direction, and there's actual work. They're actually corresponding with you. And the one remaining item there is build times. I'm okay with that because the bigger one right here is being attended to, and that's more frustrating because it's every key press. Every key press in my IDE, in my development environment, fires off the CPU for 60 to 90 seconds in a Razor file. And that's a big deal, right? And it's constant churn, and it's very inefficient, but it looks like they fixed it, and that's very exciting. Okay, moving on to Twitter. Again, as I was saying, like Lady Leah had her account suspended. She was our biggest artist, and that was where we're getting all of our exposure. Over 10,000 followers, and her account was still suspended. And getting back to communication, right? Twitter didn't actually say what the reason was, just that she broke the rules. So they didn't give her a reason, right? And I'm just thinking that is such nonsense. So there's been two questions here, right? So why is big tech so coy when it comes to communication, right? They're very unclear, and they don't really do a good job of explaining what is wrong. And the other question is, why do we put up with it, right? I feel like we're punching ourselves in our faces, and our collective faces, and we're putting up with it. We're coming back for more, right? And I hate that, right? We're enabling this system as much as we complain about it. So I try not to complain about it too much, but it's just still one of those things where when I develop a company, like what I do, I want to be very clear with the communication and try to make sure that people know exactly what's going on as much as possible. That's kind of getting back to, it's not the product you build, it's the product you support sort of thing, right? And I understand there's going to be a lot of challenges if you do scale, and there's going to be just an influx. Right now, it's the sweet time, right? There's hardly anyone using the application, and the people that do use the application, I attend to very diligently, and it's very easy to get to that. But only, I can only go for so far, right? Like there's only a certain amount of people that one person can help out, right? And we're kind of in that sweet spot right now. So I'm enjoying that while it lasts. And I try to have some empathy towards Twitter and Google, as we'll talk about next, with these kind of situations, right? And it's just like, well, obviously they're trying to make it more efficient and scale and blah, 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 but still, does it really have to be this bad? So we have Twitter, and that's still a thing. We're doing like a little bit of a campaign every morning, sending a little message out to Twitter saying, hey, Lady Leah's account is still suspended. Can you unsuspend it, please? Every morning. So we're at day 39, I believe that is. Okay, so getting to Google, and this is sort of another thing, right? This is actually a personal account, but it's sort of like this thing's going on with Twitter. Now I've got this thing with Google, right? And it's just like, what is going on? The same very thing that happened, and this is with a help community account. So this is my personal account, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm having this conversation, and I would qualify this as this is a personal conversation. This is not like a professional. I wasn't like top-notch professional the entire time. And I didn't get snarky, but I did express opinions. And I was kind of, I would say, I don't want to say forthright. I was kind of straightforward with how I was expressing myself with a particular expert in this forum, and I didn't get unprofessional at any time. I don't feel I did, and I wasn't really, I wasn't badgering or wasn't doing anything that would make me think that I was violating a content policy of any sort. But when I went back to one of the replies, I noticed that the thread was gone, and then I noticed that I could no longer post messages to this help community, which was Google help community, and this is for Google News, and I could no longer post to Google News, and I could no longer post to any other Google help communities. So that happened, right? So somewhere along the line, I got the feeling that this expert that I was talking to suspended my account without giving me a reason or notification, right? And so now I'm kind of in this boat, like, okay, I don't think I said anything that was overly badgering or trolling. I'm very cautious of this. I'm also very mindful of it, right? I might get a little edgy, right? And so I put, I'll say exactly what when I think about what occurred here is I said, one of the things that he wanted to do, this expert wanted to do, was sweep it under the rug. He said, just deal with it. This was his expert advice. And my reply to that was, that is not expert advice, because you want your users to get invested in your product, right? And, this is sort of the thing when people have problems, you actually want them to investigate and see what's wrong, because it makes them a better technologist and it gets them more familiar with their technology. In this case, it's Google. This is my Droid phone, right? I never use my Droid phone. This is a good example of that. And so there's that, right? But I put the quote expert, right? And maybe that got him a little agitated because, yeah, he's acting like an expert, but he's not giving expert advice. But this is the thing, though, is he continued. There's no problem with that. Everything went along. And, I'm just speculating here. I have absolutely no idea why my account got suspended in this regard, but this is who I was talking to when it happened. So I'm thinking this is what happened. But it went along, and then all of a sudden my account was suspended. So there wasn't anything obvious where I called him a bad name. I didn't use any bad. I don't do that anymore. And I'm I did at one point, but no longer. And so there's a couple things walking through that made me wonder what happened. And here I am. I cannot get any help for it, right? I don't know anyone at Google, and I don't know any employee at Google. There's no strings that I can pull, and now I'm relegated to using another account to post to Google help communities and try to get this old account back, and it is kind of frustrating. It's a friction point with Hide the Pain Herald. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. I feel like I just ran a marathon there, and sort of get that out of my head too. It's just what did I do? It's one of those things when your account gets suspended, you're you know what you did, and I don't feel like I really violated any content policies. And if I did, what I did, that's when you suspend me, right? The conversation continued for another 5 or 6 posts, even more than that, I think. And we were actually getting some traction, and then I got suspended. So anyways, that's, let's go back to what we're supposed to be talking about here, and that is the effectiveness level here. So effectiveness levels are levels of efficiency or effectiveness of how we feel about certain areas of the application. And I've got these delineated by different factors. And overall right now it's at a 6.5. I'm not really feeling that great about the marketing, and that's really the big component. But everything else, actually, I'm getting really settled in with coding, and I'm feeling really effective with coding. And I think that's going to be in technology when I'll say that's a little bit higher, even though there's still things that are on the way still, and they're not all there. But overall, I'm feeling okay, not terrible. I'm hoping that once we get these community markets in, that will really help out a lot, because we need that activity, and that's what those are there for. Schedule. Now, see, kind of deviating from the schedule here, so I'm not feeling really great about that. But it is a calculated risk with having these community markets in place, because that is going, in theory, that is going to produce a lot more activity, which is what we really need right now. With Lady Leah out, with our biggest account out, we have 0 market awareness right now. So the only market awareness that we have right now is with VA Vortex and what's emerging from there, and the volume that's being generated from that, the activity that's being generated from that. So anyways, getting back to the schedule here, that's going to take 2 weeks to develop. Maybe I might be able to get it done before then, but it's still, kind of a drag there. Technology, I'm feeling really great about my code. The code is awesome. The focus is awesome too. I'm feeling really great about that. It should be a 9, but there's still those problems that I'm having with Microsoft, with the Razor, and those are on the way. So until those get in, it's a 7. Marketing continues to be a struggle. We're out an engine or 2 with Lady Leah's account, and now I'm just not spending any time with marketing, and it's all code, which is great. but also, we're not getting a lot of activity outside of that. So it's down to a 5 right now. Support, it's winning by virtue of not really having a lot of tickets. So whenever I do have a ticket, people are happy. All right, slower show. It's a mid-month show, and that's going to be it for this week. Hopefully that gets you caught up, and I just wanted to thank everyone out there for all of your support, all of your purchases when they do occur, and hopefully, soon we will have more activity, we'll have more features, and we'll have people, more of a community, hopefully with Vortex helping out and possibly joining aboard and getting a community market established for themselves. That's going to be an awesome opportunity, very exciting about that. And so with that, I just want to thank everyone out there, and until next time, stay safe and stay bright. Goodbye.